Well, hey there. Happy Friday. Welcome to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let's go. Hey, this is a lot of reasons to be happy on this Friday. You know, sometimes you get a lot of negativity in the news media and talk radio and whatnot. Not today, man. Things are looking up. The markets are going to close in about an hour and a half, but unless something drastic happens, it's going to close up. And quite a bit right now. The Dow is like 1.5% to the positive. We got positive news on inflation today, where actually, if you strip out, depending on how you calculate the inflation, your food prices went up just a little bit, like 0.1%. I went and broke down the numbers from the inflation report, but if you add in everything, gas and transportation services and everything like that, actually, your prices dropped overall when you average them all together. I thought that was kind of cool. That doesn't happen a whole lot. Inflation didn't go down. We had a modest deflation. Now, that's primarily because the price of oil and gas and then things that are downstream of that went down. Like I said, transportation services, their cost is based heavily on your energy prices. And it's not just gas, your natural gas and all these other services that are next to it, pipelines and whatnot. So that great number from the print on your energy sector brought down everything else if you average it together. But even if you strip out the more volatile energy costs, the price of your food only went up 0.1%. Am I looking at that correctly? No, 0.2%. So that's not too bad. And year over year, it's at 3%. So that's the number where another thing that has come up this week, you're not going to be able to know how successful these policies are on inflation until we have about a year's worth of data. Just like, are we in a recession right now? I don't know. But if we are, we have to get the first print for the Q1 that already ended at the end of March. We're going to get that number, I think, April 30th. Then we have to go a whole nother 3 months. And then at the end of July, we will get that number for the second 3 months. And we might find out at the end of July that we were in a recession right now. But, I put my foot down so hard on Friday's show, and I remember on Monday's show saying people do not know. They are speaking with way too much certainty on what they think is going to happen in the future with this economy. And who would have known this is where we would be at the end of the week? I think the best example I have of this, there's a ton of these guys that just couldn't put their foot in their mouth fast enough. But the people that you said, well, this is going to be calamity, they all look like fools now. The people that were said this is going to be terrible. In fact, my favorite one was David Brooks. He said this is the dumbest domestic policy ever.
Yeah, I think this is going to be, I think it's literally the dumbest domestic policy of my lifetime. Of all the policies, they usually have some plausible argument. A group of experts say, yeah, this could work. You really don't see that this time with the confection of few Trumpy. I also think it's going to be a turning point for the Trump administration. You can cut foreign aid and voters don't really notice. You can gut the Department of Education or whatever and voters shrug. But if you mess with their prices...
Yeah, so inflation isn't burning hot. All the tariff stuff seems to be at least paused, if not solved, except for China. And this is what this guy said 5 measly days ago. And boy, did he ever get that wrong or what? Oh yeah, real economic catastrophe here. So if the markets were to just calcify and close right now, from that whole big downturn that started when the whole tariff slapping started happening, that was April 2nd when he started that? And what is it, April 11th? We did have that big downturn. We did have a couple of the worst days in the market since COVID. But you've recovered half of that already. Is that what they were telling you what was going to happen 5 days ago? I'm not holding these people accountable for predictions they made before the election or before the tariff thing happened or when we were just talking about it in January and February. This was 5 days ago. This was after the tariffs have already been put on. You saw a couple days of market convulsions, and you're declaring this the worst domestic policy ever. Oh, really? I just can't get enough of this. I eat this stuff for dessert.
Yeah, I think this is going to be, well, A, I think it's literally the dumbest domestic policy of my lifetime. The most,
That's it. The dumbest of his lifetime. Not the COVID lockdowns, not the Inflation Reduction Act, not leaving a wide open border for 4 years. Do you think Lake and Riley's family thinks that this is the dumbest domestic policy decision of their lifetimes? Oh no, we had a market drop for about 4 days. What a catastrophe. Is this the worst? Was this the worst, most horrific domestic policy mistake of your lifetime? The Terrafor, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, more good news. The Doge update. I'd reported some of the stuff they were finding in their dig into unemployment insurance, unemployment compensation yesterday. Well, we have more numbers. They're even bigger, and they're going to blow you away, but you will feel a little bit better that someone's tapping the brakes on some of this stuff. So Doge updates coming up next on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. You know, there's reason to believe the worst is over. There's reason to believe of all the shockwaves that'll come from tariffs that we may have already hit the bottom of the Grand Canyon with only upside potential here. And I think the severe case for optimism is, I don't want to say it's not likely. I'm leaning more toward optimism than pessimism for sure. But again, the severe case for optimism assumes that all these tariffs that are on pause for 90 days on 75 countries, that they'll all come to some deal, or most of them will come to some deal before that 90-day pause is up and they won't get slapped back on. But as far as what we're dealing with, the biggest trade partnership in the world, United States and China over here, we now are facing 125% tariffs if we want to sell on their side of the ocean. They're facing 145% tariffs if they want to sell their stuff on our side of the ocean. And the important part, the reason why I feel like someone's slamming the brakes here is because China did, in their announcement that we're putting on retaliatory tariffs of 125%, they did have us at 84 earlier this week, 84% tariffs. But they said they do not plan to retaliate against any potential additional U.S. tariff increases, which they're kind of showing their hand that, like if you're playing poker, yeah, I'm going to call and I'm going to raise. And then Trump said, okay, I'm going to call, I'm going to raise. So Xi Jinping said, fine, I'll call you and I'll raise you. And then Trump said, fine, I'll call you and I'll raise you. And then Xi Jinping said, I'll call. Now the media would rather slide down a razor blade banister than give Trump any credit here. But if anyone's going to be accused of blinking here, Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping's the first guy to say, uncle, ouch, this is as high as I want it to go. Because now you're kind of shutting the door of opportunity or concern, or, you're kind of giving over one of your negotiation cards. This is as far as you're willing to go. And he's actually willing to say that. So what we've seen is these guys following the classic business negotiation playbook. Whether it's Art of the Deal or How to Win Friends and Influence People, or I don't know, there's probably a chapter in Art of War on this stuff. China has already signaled this is as far as we're going to go. They had gotten kicked out of talks earlier this week. There was talks going that got shut off, and Trump said, I'll get back to you later. The other case for optimism that I don't think a whole lot of people are seeing an overlap here, but you probably do, is there's a big negotiation that's supposed to be happening with Iran this weekend. And so if that is some foreign policy wound that can be band-aided over or bandaged up, that's actually positive for the economy. That's positive, not just for world peace, but, the animal spirits of optimism and getting things done, and, the whole oil markets and the trade through the Suez Canal and the Houthi damage and the Hezbollah and Hamas and Gaza. And so much stuff is hinging on Iran being a good player that if that gets resolved, huge excuse for optimism across markets, across global markets, across shipping and international trade and oil and all the most important commodities. But at the same time, if you can do something about Iran, that really puts pressure on what's going down with Hamas and Israel, because one of the big funders of Hamas, both in technology and resources and money and weapons, is Iran. And that'll kind of force them to the table as well. So we do that. And then, look, I know I'm asking for a lot here, but what happens if we do get a permanent ceasefire with Ukraine and Russia? Where is our overseas hotspot then? Where is the drain on resources going to be, where all of a sudden we got to be either handing out $40 million Tomahawk missiles, or however much they cost? I don't know. We got to be blowing stuff up on the other side of the planet. Even when you just say we're going to send an aircraft carrier group to Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, you're paying for that gas, but it's also the uncertainty. It's also the shipping lanes. It's also, all these things get smoothed out, and we start lifting sanctions on trading partners, so where we don't have to put sanctions on Russia, and Germany and Russia don't have to put sanctions on each other. And, Russia has retaliatory sanctions on, their trading partners over there in the Eastern Bloc, or former Eastern Bloc, Poland. If you want to get way over your skis in optimism, you have a real good excuse to just start playing Louis Armstrong with the windows rolled down, on a cool spring day. When you look out, what is it, like 70 degrees outside? We have a closed border. We have low, almost no inflation, minimal inflation. We have peace breaking out in the Middle East and across Russia and other hot spots. You done winning yet? More details though on the financial front here. The Doge update of the day, I think you'd be really interested in. We had Elon Musk sitting in on the cabinet meeting yesterday, and I'd played you a clip of that I grabbed like right before the show started, and we were pretty happy about this. 150 billion in unemployment.
Well, thanks to your fantastic leadership, this amazing cabinet, and the very talented Doge team, I'm excited to announce that we anticipate savings in FY26 from reduction of waste and fraud by $150 billion. And I mean, and some of it is just absurd, like people getting unemployment insurance who haven't been born yet. I mean, I think anyone can appreciate whether, I mean, come on. That's just crazy.
All right, so that was already good news. I have an update on that preliminary information that he was throwing out there. The full number is way above that. What did it get to? Like 354 million, or I'm sorry, billion. Wait, I think Joe Biden said it. How much was that, Joe?
$1,400,600 billion.
It wasn't that much. But here's the breakdown. Elon had mentioned this, and then apparently someone from Doge put this on Twitter at DOGE. There were 24.5 thousand people over 115 years old getting unemployment benefits. They had claimed 59 million since 2020. There's 28,000 people between the ages of 1 to 5 years old. They're probably unemployed. To be fair, I don't think they're gainfully employed. So I mean, I don't think that's the spirit of the program. But here's the crazy part. 254 million in benefits since 2020 had been issued to people ages 1 to 5. Now, are all those fraudulent? Is that people stealing it? Or is this some guy who's supposed to be getting unemployment, but they typed in his birthday wrong and it was just a clerical error? Well, it's hard to believe it's just a clerical error when there's 28,000 people between the age of 1 to 5 years old. It also lets you know that there's no mechanism by which they filter these things out or even look for it or audit themselves to make sure they're not doing it. 28,000 oopsies? No. Over a, 4-year and 3-month span? Not believable. There are almost 10,000 people with birth dates that are over 15 years in the future. They've collected 69 million in benefits since 2020. I know, nice. In one case, there's someone with a birthday who's already claimed $41,000 in benefits just since 2020. Their birthday, the year 2154. What is that? That's like Buck Rogers almost. When was Buck Rogers? You don't really have to call in and say that. If I want to know, I'll Google it. It's just a funny rhetorical question. Let me save my phone screener a lot of grief. I know. Yeah, we don't really need to know when Buck Rogers is. But we're scraping out more waste, fraud, and abuse from people who were born in 2154. So are you done winning or should we keep on winning? Is the worst over? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. The top news story today is the economy. We are now an hour away from the markets closing, and right now the Dow's up more than 1.5%. It's gone up by about 0.1% since the show started. It's back above the 40,000 mark, and it has recovered a little bit more than half of what it lost since the tariffs were slapped on April 2nd. You remember how we had the big downturn, and it was Sodom and Gomorrah and Caligula and dogs and cats living together, and it was literally the end of times. Well, that's all over now. It didn't really pan out. We're halfway back out of that hole that was dug when the tariff uncertainty spooked the markets, and we're still getting positive results from Doge. Now, I hope all this stuff gets to stick. Meanwhile, what's the complaint now? Did anyone who told you that this is the worst domestic policy of our lifetimes, are they going to come out and say, oh, sorry about that, I guess I was wrong, that wasn't so bad after all? They're not going to do that. They're going to move on to the next outrage. And the economy's starting to fall off of the headlines of some of our other the platforms of your people who are not politically aligned with you very much. Here's the headline on CNN. I thought you'd find this kind of cute. Trump has 90 days to do 150 trade deals. No one is buying it. Oh, sure. Like there's not anybody else who works on his staff who has the marching orders of, hey, let's get something reciprocal, hopefully like around 10% or less on everything without any special protections or subsidies. And then come it back, bring it back to me. I'll review it and approve it. Like it's impossible. He has 90 days to do 150 trade deals and no one's buying it. Really? What if he's proposed the new trade deal and all they have to do is sign off on it? Do you know how many people are going to sign off on whatever he's asking for? Or if they're just going to counter offer and it'll be a decision that can be made easily within a matter of minutes? No, even if there's good news out there, even if we have the tariffs paused, we have markets recovering, we have everybody but China at the negotiating table, they have to come up with something negative. You people are just miserable. So that's their number one headline. The other headline is the most important guy in the world, this Garcia fella, who looks like maybe with a clerical error was sent to the El Salvadorian prison, and he wasn't supposed to be one of the guys there. Some judge ruled that, well, you can't prove that he's an MS-13. Now, both sides have admitted there's a mistake that happened here. But I get really suspicious when I go try and read up on this, and in the story, they don't actually tell you whether or not this guy is an immigrant. Like I read the AP story and then I did a word search on it. They didn't mention the fact that he was an immigrant, whether or not he was legal or illegal. They didn't give his nationality. They didn't give his place of birth. They didn't really tell you anything about him except for his name. And he was a U.S. resident. And really, if that's how we're going to report on this, then fine. Don't tell me whether or not he's legal. Wouldn't you think that's kind of an important part of the story? Because it's less of a civil rights violation if this guy's here illegally and he just got deported to the wrong place. Now, it's one of the most hellish prisons on earth. But it's not as bad as, hey, he's a natural-born American citizen just living his best life, and they just whipped this American citizen off the street with no due process and sent him overseas to the Salvadorian prison. That would be a lot worse. Well, why don't they tell you? Why don't they tell you his status? Do they not know? Do they have no way of finding out? Or do they just happen not to include it? So the guy's name is Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia. I went over to CNN, and God bless them. CNN was less hacky than the Associated Press, which Associated Press, just so much shame on you. The CNN article actually says he's a Salvadorian national. Oh, well, that changes it. Was he here legally or was he here illegally? CNN. I know, don't hold your breath. But the judge has stepped in and has made all kinds of demands here on the situation. And They do not tell you if he is legal or illegal in the situation, which, okay, fine, don't tell me. But they said you've got to facilitate the return of this guy. They're also saying we need regular updates on him. You need regular updates on Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia. We can't just like text you every once in a while. But the demands here, it's almost like we're just designed to stop and slow this process down as much as possible. We're not really concerned about whether or not he should have been deported, whether or not he was here legally. We don't even cover that in the story. That's not even part of the thought process. We're just whatever. Anyway, so updates must come in the form of a sworn statement from an individual with personal knowledge of the situation. The individual must answer a series of questions the judge has already posed to the government. And the questions include the current physical location and custodial status of Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, and what steps, if any, are being taken to facilitate his immediate return to the U.S. That's so adorable. These judges, U.S. District Judge Paulina Zinnis, I believe is how you say her name. I like how they can just step in and we can all get together and we can vote in our president who's supposed to control our borders, who's supposed to oversee the Department of Education. I mean, the executive branch of government. He's the commander-in-chief of the executive branch, commander-in-chief of the military. He's the guy that runs the border. And we can have just any old judge just step in from anywhere and be like, no, I don't think you're doing your job right. You need to halt everything. So, look, it's unfortunate that it looks like there was a mistake here. I hope we get it rectified. I hope if he is supposed to be here legally, then he gets to come back and maybe gets a little restitution. If he's here illegally, then let's get him out of that jail and we'll just let him stay elsewhere in El Salvador. But let's not act like, well, we're going to deport thousands of people. If we find one mistake, then we need to abandon the whole enterprise, because that doesn't make any sense. Do we say that for any law? Do we ever say, well, some guys are going to be falsely accused and even go to jail or prison for rape, so we should just stop enforcing laws against rape? No, that's hellish. What are y'all talking about? That's not justice at all. We admit this is a human enterprise. There's going to be mistakes, but that should have no bearing on whether or not we pursue and enforce our own immigration laws, and even, God forbid, deport people that have no legal right to be here. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, the great James Varney from Real Clear Politics. How is this playing in the polls? You'll find out next on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back. This is the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, we have the economic convulsions have sort of quietened down. The stock market is returning and taking back some of the losses that it was dishing out last week and earlier this week. And things generally seem to be on the up and up. But I got some news for you. It doesn't seem to be working, or at least this quick, in the polls. James Varney from Real Clear Politics is my next guest. You know, you guys have a sister outfit, realclearpolling.com, that was showing he had historic high numbers for Donald Trump. In fact, it was the first time since y'all started keeping polls on this guy that he was positive in the favorable, unfavorable rating. But he's already given that back and gone back to unfavorable again. That doesn't seem very fair.
Well, it's also, James, wild swings in polls, right? I mean, you're 3 months into your term. I think whoever you are in the White House, you can't get too wrapped up in your favorability rating just 3 months in, especially if you're serious about whatever policies you're pursuing. And I think maybe it's sort of the uncertainty about everything here that is really roiling people, certainly the markets. And if I was in the Trump White House, I wouldn't be losing sleep over the Real Clear polling averages in early April.
Well, I think the concern really should be with the larger trend, because we are sort of dismissive of the almost every weekend protests that are going on. But that can wear down on the general public's perception. You know, 97% negative coverage from the network news is going to eventually have downward pressure on his polling, whether he deserves it or not.
Well, that's probably true, right? And this is something that people, and you and I and other people have talked about for a very long time, is just the overwhelming media bias. And then, like you just said, the overwhelmingly negative coverage that he gets. You know, we're talking about tariffs. So, for example, Biden not only kept tariffs on China that Trump had put in place in his first term, but I think he raised them on a few things. Now, nobody said anything about that. Maybe they had a deal on the side, right, that says we're not going to make a big stink about the tariffs. You let us fly spy balloons over the country. Okay, good. But, you know, it is something that it's another thing, I think, that what Trump is doing isn't really radical. It's actually trying to revert things back towards the norm. But it's getting painted as radical. And you see this not just in tariffs. You see it with energy. You see it with immigration. All of these things that were pretty acceptable in a broad discourse of American politics for most of my life now get painted as radical. So I don't know what's going to happen, right? Like, I think Trump is he is a very good negotiator. He fancies himself an incredible negotiator. So I think we should give this, 2 or 3 months to see what might pan out before we hit the panic button. Now, that's not going to matter, like you say, in the nightly news, but I think that's, for most reasonable people, that's the best approach to take.
Well, what an interesting study in human behavior the Tesla vandalism stuff has become. My wife's favorite actor, Josh Duhamel, has a Cybertruck, and he was on the Adam Carolla podcast. Said he gets flipped off 10 times a day in a Cybertruck. Hang on, listen.
It's a different world than it was when I first started. It's not. You just got to really. So for me, stay out of politics. If I start talking politics, I'm gonna get dude. I bought a Cybertruck.
Oh yeah.
I bought this before it all started hitting the fan.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people have flipped me off driving down the streets daily, 10 times a day.
Really?
So I thought they were the party of love and empathy and kindness.
Yeah, he's actually lucky he's only getting flipped off, right? I mean, I've seen pictures of these things burning. There's some kind of disconnect there. And I've seen some people writing about how maybe Trump's greatest achievement is getting leftists who once loved Elon Musk because he's Mr. Electric Car to now hate him. Like, how can you pull that off?
Well,
only Trump could do it. But it isn't a healthy situation.
No, but you have these people who are running around screaming about fascism, and then they're vandalizing people's cars. They're breaking windows in their businesses and setting them on fire like Kristallnacht, and they're painting swastikas everywhere.
Yeah, it's nuts, right? It's. Are we going to have another summer of love?
Well, how many swastikas do you have to paint before people start checking your Nazi credibility?
I think that's a very good question. And I think it also ought to be asked, how many dealerships and cars do you have to torch before they put cuffs on you? I mean, I think we see signs of people not being quite as tolerant of violent behavior as they were, but there is this kind of, what are they calling it? Did you see that study that the guy at Rutgers did about assassination porn and people, they're sort of mainstreaming this idea that violence against people like Musk and against Tesla owners and Teslas and stuff is okay.
Well, yeah,
these people are so awful.
It is a form of like self-congratulating fan fiction, like I'm fighting the Nazis. It's like what global warming does for them. I'm saving the planet. No, you're making me use a paper straw, and that doesn't make you a hero. James Varney, I wish I had more time, but thank you very much. You can find his good stuff, Real Clear Politics, Real Clear Investigations, and everywhere else online. Thank you, sir.
Sure. You're welcome, James. See you.
All right, there he is, the great James Varney. Coming up next, the Collin County DA says the death penalty is off the table for the homicide by Carmelo Anthony. What sentence do you think he deserves? I'll tell you what sentence I think he deserves next. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Happy Friday. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome to the big show. Hey, all the people watching online. You know, that's one of the perks if you follow WBAP on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or any of these other platforms. You can view the show, and you can also see what the other people are saying in real time, and they kind of have their own conversation in the comment section sometime. And I'll get to that in just a second. But update on a story that I know you've heard about, the Austin Metcalf situation. The DA from Collin County has announced that he will not be seeking the death penalty. So how does that make you feel? I do not get entirely exercised about decisions like this. I'm not a trained lawyer, and let me tell you where the soft spot in my heart lies. This guy is 17 years old while he's being tried as an adult. I mean, do we really hold people 100% accountable for things that they've done when they were a child and their brain wasn't fully developed? I know, like, that's the whole point of being a minor. That's the whole point of having the age, and this guy's on the other side of it. So death penalty, maybe not. What sentence do you think he deserves? 800-288-9227 if you have a strong opinion on it. But I think most people would be okay with him just getting life with no parole, or maybe life with parole after like 30 years. Because if you look, you do the math. He's 17 now. If you do life and then he gets parole in 30 years, or he's up for parole in 30 years, and the soonest he can get out is at age 47, what do you think of that? Because I have two wolves inside of me that are fighting. One wolf is saying, oh my goodness. I mean, you're completely ruining his life. He's not going to be able to like fall in love with his soulmate and get married and have kids in a normal family. I mean, he may be able to tack on some sped up instant family where he marries a wife with kids already when he gets out at 47, if that's even a thing. The other part of me says, if that was my kid that got stabbed in the heart, no, that guy should never get out. He's lucky I don't kill him myself. And that's a completely irrational thing to say and way to go about it. So no, that's not where I'm at. My true feeling is somewhere between those two polar opposites, because I'm not that soft-hearted that I want him to get out at 47, but I'm also not so hard-hearted that I'm ready to just put him up against the firing squad and call it a day. And there's a lot of emotion wrapped up into this, and I always try and separate out the emotion when it comes to situations like this, because emotional people make bad decisions. Emotional people make illogical, irrational, wrong decisions. But the reason why this story has blown up more so than so many other minors who have passed away under suspicious circumstances in DFW just this year is look at the conversations that are being had online. Look at the way we're getting people to open up and talk about this case and talk about the situation in our culture and our society in ways that they wouldn't dare absent this situation. What do you think about the fundraiser? There's a fundraiser for Carmelo Anthony that's up to above $350,000 right now. It's through Give, Send, Go. A lot of people were reaching out trying to get it shut down. In fact, I think they did get it shut down on GoFundMe, and it had to move to Give, Send, Go. And then Give, Send, Go, their co-founder, had to put out a statement on X saying, listen, innocent until proven guilty. I know we don't support violent criminals or whatever, but he hasn't had his due process yet. And if we were allowed, we were allowed to do campaigns for Kyle Rittenhouse and Daniel Penny, both of those cases, they had to do the presumed innocent until proven guilty. And so they're just applying that same standard here. So I think they're in the okay. I can understand why you think it's gross if you're going to go out and donate money at a time like this and in a situation like this. But let me give you where the hottest coals are lying in this fire. Does the name Matt Walsh mean anything to you? If you don't know already, I'm sure you've heard it before. He had the #1 documentary last year. He just ran around asking woke people, am I racist? And so for an hour and a half, the responses were hilarious. He had a big documentary before that where he just walked around asking woke people, what is a woman? And it was just an hour and a half of bliss. So he is the biggest documentarian of the last 10 years. The documentary came out with last year. It wasn't nominated for an Oscar, but it had more people see it in the theater than any documentary since like Inconvenient Sequel or something like that. It's like almost 10 years, I think in 8 years. But here's what he wrote, and now you're seeing all kinds of celebrities because he's a bigwig now. He's got millions of followers, and this is where I think the hottest action is happening. His post says, when a guy shows up somewhere he's not supposed to be, refuses to leave, dares you to touch him, and then when you do touch him in an effort to get him to leave, he pulls out a knife and stab you. He has not done anything close to self-defense. It is murder, plain and simple. And then a couple of the replies to the obvious pushbacks. The other guy started it. He touched him first. Here's the reply from Matt Walsh on a couple of the... I'll just read you a bunch of replies in order here. Touch me and see what happens are not the words of a man fearing for his life. They are the words of a man looking for a pretext to kill you. No sane person thinks that Anthony feared for his life. If he did, he could have left the tent at any time. It's the same BS. We hear when a black guy assaults a cop during a traffic stop, they tell us he was afraid of the cop. But if you're afraid of the cop, deliberately turning the situation violent is the opposite of what you would do. He put that in all caps, so I said opposite loud. I'm afraid of you, so I'm going to do everything I can to create a violent encounter with you is nonsense. We all know that. Anthony did not fear for his life. He felt disrespected. That's not the same thing. You can't kill someone simply because you don't like how they talk to you. It is mind-boggling that I have to explain this. Oh my goodness, there goes the phones. One more, and then when we get back, you're going to hear some people who look pretty hot over here on the phone lines. There was a good reply here that I've seen a lot, and you've probably heard a lot in the discussions that you've had with your friends and whatever about this. Some lady named Erikel says, and you are a racist. One student has no right, none, to lay hands on another. Austin made a mistake, which cost him his life. When someone tells you not to touch them, don't effing touch them. Matt replies, just to be entirely clear here, if you personally ever make any kind of physical contact with anyone without their permission, they are morally justified in stabbing you directly in the heart. Is that what you're now announcing to the world? Your response next, coming up on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Collin County DA says he will not be seeking the death penalty in the death of Austin Metcalf. What do you think he deserves? Is that the death penalty offense? Life without parole, or the likelihood of parole? Life with maybe we'll think about it after 30 years, 15 years? Should he walk scot-free? Was it self-defense? 800-288-9227. Jeff in Aubrey, you're on WBAP. What do you think he deserves?
Well, the thing is, he doesn't qualify for the death penalty. First of all, because he was charged with a first degree murder, which the punishment phase for that is 5 to 99 or life. On top of that, he was 17 at the time that the offense was committed. The Supreme Court a while back ruled that 17-year-olds cannot be put to death.
Okay, that's the letter of the law, but I'm asking you what you think. Is that the correct charge? Should he be charged with capital murder? Go ahead and work with me here. If you're the guy, if you're the DA in Collin County, and maybe the Supreme Court doesn't have that decision, do you think he deserves, as Jeff in Aubrey, not as the guy who's interpreting the Supreme Court decisions, do you think he deserves the death penalty?
As Jeff in Aubrey, having sons of my own, absolutely. But as Jeff, that was a former law enforcement officer that realizes that capital murder is the only thing that qualifies for the death penalty in the state of Texas, the death penalty is not even on the table with the DA's office. I mean,
understood.
Whether they say it is or not.
Something I learned in the brief time that I had to leave Texas, and God, I hope I never have to do that again, is that the rules for first degree and second degree murder aren't the same from state to state. Like in Louisiana, it means something different. And without getting into all the details, because I'll probably screw it up as a non-lawyer, I thought everyone just played by the same rules, but there's little tweaks and turns in there. But I appreciate it, Jeff. I appreciate the fact that you can have a dual mind, as both Jeff in Aubrey, the father, and Jeff, the former law enforcement official who knows the law, probably better than I do, that's for sure. Rob in McKinney, you're on WBAP. What do you think is fair for him?
I'm actually of the opposite opinion. I don't think that I don't think as a society we should be putting kids to death. However, I'm thinking that we're thinking about this all wrong. You were talking about how he doesn't get a chance to spend Christmas or have a soulmate. He will have a cellmate love, but he won't have a soulmate love. But I want to see him in jail for the rest of his life with no possibility of parole. He doesn't get to take a life because he got mad.
So how do you convince the people who think that he either was acting in self-defense or he should get out in 30 years? How do you convince them off of their position?
Convince them of putting him in jail, or convince them of what? He did not act in self-defense. There was the escalation of violence does not justify murder. He had a duty to walk away. Now, the other kid probably should not have put his hands on him. He probably should have gone and told somebody. But again, the escalation of violence does not justify murder. I'm a vet with 2 deployments. I had to learn how to switch it off. Otherwise, we're going down a very, very slippery slope here, because if you can just murder someone for putting their hands on you, brother, I've been doing it all wrong.
Well, I like the absoluteness of your position here, because I grew up on a farm around animals, and if one was acting out and being violent when they were really young, the best thing to do was just put it out of its misery and be done with it. Because if he's already acting this bad before he's even fully developed, there's no chance that things are going to get better. Like this is a bad apple. This is a bad seed. I don't know if he was born a psychopath, or maybe he has just had some history of abuse that we're not aware of, but something's not right in his head that he could pull out a knife and put it in a fellow human being's heart over someone grabbing his arm.
And if it wasn't then, it'd be later down the road, because once he's going down that road, and I mean, I hate to kind of stereotype, but I'm wondering if it's a broken family, no father in the picture, because my son knows right from wrong. He knows escalation of violence. He knows you can't murder someone because you got offended or someone put their hands on you.
Yeah.
He knew how far to take stuff.
Look, that's usually where I start. Like, where was his dad? What was his home life like? But, there are still people out there with fathers in the house being raised by their biological parents, and they are not long for this world because they can't stop killing their fellow human being. And let's not test this too much, because if you think you feel bad about this Austin Metcalf having an empty chair at Christmas, what if this guy gets out in 15 or 30 years and does it again? How do you explain it to that family? God, that's a level of grief that I'm not willing to deal with. Kenny, Fort Worth, you're on WBAP. What do you think he deserves?
Yes, please. Life in prison. He is so young now. Even if he's out in 30 years, he is going to be molded into a career criminal. Who would hire him as an ex-con? What kind of life is he going to have?
Well, I think the pushback to that is he is a 17-year-old who doesn't have fully formed faculties, and maybe after being put on ice for 30 years, his judgment will be reset, and he can be a contributing member of society. We do have those guys that come out of prison and turn their life around and do good things, like a Jelly Roll or a Tim Allen, from Home Improvement and Last Man Standing. Our recidivism rate is terribly high, but that doesn't mean we just write everyone off. However, I kind of
this is a murder, though. You took a life. He is going to only be hardened in prison. But at the same point, looking at the other side, had this been a female if he were a female and he stabbed a guy that approached him like that, would we be talking about, well, she was defending herself from a rape?
Man, maybe. I'm glad we don't have that level of complexity in this. Thank you, Kenny in Fort Worth. Give me a little bit to think about. I have time to squeeze in one more. It will be John. John in Frisco, you're on WBAP. What do you think Carmelo Anthony deserves?
Well, I tell you what, there's a lot to unpack here. Various callers have produced, different things. But as a dad of two boys, if either of my sons stabbed somebody in the heart, regardless of the reason, they need to be in life without parole, without question. I don't care if he's 17 or not. My boys, are 10 and 12, and they know at that age not to do that.
Well,
But at what point in society do we give them a pass? Now, I wasn't going to bring this up, but the last two callers did. Who cares what their parents and how they grew up? I came from a broken home. I don't have those tendencies to go murder somebody because I'm pissed. I mean, we got to draw the line somewhere, and we got to be responsible for the actions that we give to this world.
Okay, I can explain a couple of these, but we really need to take a break. All right, the reason why I'll just go long. The reason why we care about the broken home thing is because so many of these violence statistics are attached to broken homes. Children brought up in single mother homes are 5 times more likely to commit suicide, 9 times more likely to drop out of high school, 10 times more likely to get addicted to drugs, 14 times more likely to commit rape, 20 times more likely to end up in prison, 32 times more likely to run away from home. So single motherhood has kind of been like the farm team for the escalation in violence and criminality and the exploding prison population, more so than we can attach to any other metric. But in this like individual situations, it doesn't really matter. People that have great home lives can end up being complete psychos and murderers, and people who've had terrible home lives can grow up and do great things. So it's not a open and shut case on an individual basis, but people are just recognizing the larger pattern that usually gets overlooked because it really doesn't fit the narrative. One side is over here pushing marriage and consensual, anyway, starting a family, having kids. Anyway, traditional, all that stuff. I'm just out of time. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, homeowners. James Parker here for Blue Ribbon Roofing. One good thing if you go and get the free roof inspection is that you get a bunch of pictures, you get a bunch of paperwork, and you get a baseline set. So if a storm does come through in the next few months and you have a problem, you can easily prove to the insurance company that it was caused by this storm. Why? Because we have all of this backing material here to support your claim. So that's just another side benefit if you have any doubt, or if it's been a while since anyone's checked out your roof. There's nothing up front that's going to cost you. It's a free roof inspection. Go to blueribbondfw.com. They'll come out there, they'll take some pictures, they'll get up, they'll look at everything, they'll document it. If you need any repairs, we'll talk about if it's just going to be a patch or if you need a whole new roof. But if everything looks good, you're going to be in great shape the next time you do need some help with your roof. So it's just another extra benefit of going to blueribbondfw.com. You're going to be doing business with a family run outfit, a company that's been here for 31 years here in North Texas with over 100 5-star Google reviews. Go check them all out. BlueRibbonDFW.com. BlueRibbonDFW.com. Hey there, welcome back. I'm James Parker. It's the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Joining me now, Victoria Churchill. Welcome back to the James Show, Victoria. Good to have you back on. And what a difference a week makes. We had the whole market go all the way down and halfway back up. We had tariffs on all the countries on the planet, and now we only have really tariffs on one. What do you think the big takeaway is? Do you have a lesson from this week?
Well, so great to be back on with you. And, for me, I think the thing is that this is what President Trump has done throughout his entire career, is that he's pegged himself as the negotiator, as the deal maker. And I think that's really what he tried to do with these tariffs. Obviously people were scared, as you talked about the stock market numbers, but I think he's showing that, the voters that voted for him in November, that they didn't actually make the wrong choices. Some people were assuming that they did there for a short while.
Well, I think one of the big lessons here is just get ready for 4 years of this from the media. I think everything this guy does is going to be treated like it's the seventh level of Dante's Inferno, and just don't even expect it to change.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that. And I mean, as we've talked about a number of times when you've had the chance to invite me on the show, is that the way that the mainstream media frames everything that the administration does and that the president does is like it's an Armageddon, really. And so, with that in mind, I think that's really nothing new. But, also, as we've talked about, I think is that because of that, Americans are turning more and more away from mainstream media and going to independent journalists, independent creators to get their takes on things, because they're not coming out of this groupthink that you get out of journalism, or, really being in DC or New York, where a lot of these places really turn out this kind of uniparty lines of thought.
Well, how frustrating is that for the average American? Because, 1 year ago, all these same people that were so wrong about the economic consequences of the tariffs this week, a year ago, they were telling you Joe Biden's sharp as a tack. The year before that, they were saying inflation's transitory. The year before that, they were saying Hunter's laptop was Russian disinformation. I mean, how many times can they get it wrong and still have any credibility left and have their jobs, Victoria?
I mean, and again, as we've talked about before, the mainstream media is rapidly losing credibility, of course, and this is something that the White House realizes. They've been inviting independent journalists and creators and, podcasters, and really new outlets are coming up as well. And so I think that's part of the, obviously when we talk about the free market, the information market is definitely one of them, and we're really seeing it play out day to day, because you never know what's going to spring up in terms of a new podcast, or a new paper or a newsletter service that will spring up. And so again, that's really, I think, consumers voting with their dollars, voting with their attention spans, right? Because even things that are free, things like advertising are obviously what pays for that. And so that's the roundabout way of voting for the information that you want. And even really thinking about in terms of, time, right? We always talk about time as the one resource that you can never get more of. And so if folks are not spending their time on mainstream media, I think that's an even bigger answer to that question.
Okay, I have some breaking news here. One of the organizers at the Columbia protest, the pro-Palestinian protest, where they were blocking the Jewish kids from going to class and camping out and all that stuff, Mahmoud Khalil, he was going to be deported, but he was being held in Louisiana for the last couple weeks. A judge just ruled a few minutes ago that he can be deported, and the U.S. government met its burden of proof to remove him. And this has been sort of a rallying cry against the deportations. How does that stick with you? That seems like they got it right on this one.
Well, to me, I think there's few things that the federal government should do, but keeping American citizens safe is one of them. And so if they believe that they've proven that kind of burden of proof that they had to prove to show that this guy was a threat to national security and things like that, to me, that's a win for them.
All right, Victoria Churchill, how do we find your work online?
Yeah, absolutely. Keep up with me on X at @snits_churchy, SNITS_CHURCHY. And I'm sure we will chat again soon, James.
Thank you very much, Victoria Churchill on The James Show. Coming up next, Pete has been doing this thing around DFW where they show up with a truck, and on it is a bunch of animals being slaughtered on the big box truck in the back. And over the loudspeaker, they're playing animal screams, like animals being slaughtered and dying, to disrupt people from having their lunch because they're eating meat, and they want to remind them of all the pain and torture and murder and abuse that came from them eating their meat. Isn't that disturbing the peace? We'll talk about it next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. What does it mean to be disturbing the peace? Does it mean to be playing your music loud? What if it's good music and everyone likes it? What if you're at a concert? What if you're just watching the football game and you have your living room window open and your neighbors can hear it on their back porch next door? Are you disturbing the peace there? You know, there's a lot of gray area in some of these legal terms. But I think this one's clearly past the gray area into black and white and does meet the definition of disturbing the peace. PETA this week went around with a truck, and on the truck is a sign on the back that has all kinds of animals getting slaughtered. It's really gross. And they're trying to, bring attention to what they think is a horrible thing. And, they think meat is murder. They think killing animals just to eat them is not a legit excuse. And so they want other people to share that. They want to reduce the suffering in the world. And, they're concerned with animals. I'm just going to assume their heart's in the right place. But like in one of these box trucks, on the back, there's one of them that looks like a pig pen. And when pigs are in pens, you probably hadn't been to a pig feeder before. Some of them are on levels. And in this box truck, it has 3 levels of pigs that are in these tight little cramped spaces, and they're dirty and they're gross. And it's intentionally meant to make meat look unappealing. But here's where it goes too far. There's speakers loaded on top that are blasting the sounds of dying animals, and they're doing this while driving around restaurants. Now, there's also what they say is, I haven't heard this, but a subliminal message every 10 seconds to promote veganism. Now, I saw this written up in the Dallas Observer, dallasobserver.com. They explain the timing of this tour to coincide with Easter, which is coming up. It's in like 9 days, April 20th. Hey, it's on 420. Who knew? But this time of year, PETA explains they're all about celebrating life, but they're concerned about what the hams that are going to be eaten, because one of the places they're going by is Terry Black's in Deep Ellum and Honey Baked Ham. They're on the route. So PETA thinks that they're doing good. They think that pigs, like humans, dream when they sleep. They enjoy listening to music. They also have emotions. They can show sympathy for others. And so they deserve protections just as much as humans, I suppose. But here's the funny part. After going to restaurants and trying to horrify us silly meat eaters and going to places where they sell hams, the final stop in the tour is called the Hell on Wheels. The final stop is the new theme park in North Richland Hills dedicated to Peppa Pig. They're harassing people at the Peppa Pig theme park. One place they don't eat pigs is at the Peppa Pig theme park. What? I don't understand that part. I don't understand what's going on. These people have lost me. All right. Peppa Pig is on the route. But listen, I'm going to have Jeremy Rosenthal coming up later in the show, but that's not going to be until like an hour from now. So I'll ask him and I'll try and get the final skitty on this. But I don't understand how this can't be considered disturbing the peace. Their intent is to disturb the peace. Their intent is for a nice couple that's just chilling on the patios of a Mi Cocina or something else. They got a combo fajitas for 2. And PETA's intent is to pull up and show them images and play them sounds that ruin the meat eating experience for them. Not only do I think this kind of meanders into the space of disturbing the peace, this is intentionally disturbing the peace. And as much of a libertarian as I am, as people should be able to do whatever they want and say whatever they want with no consequences, this is illegal. You're intentionally ruining the days of other people. And look, there's a place in my heart if it's unintentional, but I don't think anyone's just casually playing screaming noises. I like to use the example of someone's running around listening to their music and they got their window down. Yeah, you may be disturbing someone, but the intent's not there. In fact, you're trying to spread joy. You're like, oh, hey, I like this song. It's like nice and happy and upbeat and Pink Pony Club or whatever you're listening to. But this one, you're literally trying to disturb them. PETA, this doesn't help. This doesn't bring people over to your side. I'm not sure if one person in a metroplex of 8 million people is going to see the poor conditions that pigs live in and hear the dying animal noises and think, that's it. I'm not eating any more meat. I bet you there's going to be a whole lot of people who think, you know what? I hate PETA even more. I am going to fight against them now. But what a bunch of punks. You know what? If you have to go disturb people while they're trying to have a nice lunch on a patio and a beautiful day the week before Easter, what is it, like 72 degrees right now? And you're going up and you're ruining people's perfect day for your political cause, you're on the wrong side. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. PETA disturbing the peace. Of course they are. And coming up next, some more people disturbing the peace. We're having an issue with squatters in North Texas. And I'm not sure if this new Senate bill is going to help much. Details coming up on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, happy Friday. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome back to the show. All right, we have problems with squatters in Texas. I hate these stories. The squatting issue seems like an issue that shouldn't even exist. Like, okay, so you go on vacation, you come back, there's people in your house. You call the cops to remove them, and the cops say, "Well, we got to put it in front of a judge. I don't know who to believe here." And so you have to wait for what? A judge to have a ruling for you to evict them so what the constable can come kick them out. I really feel like I'm not only missing a step, I feel like I'm missing like 8 steps here. Let me give you a rundown here. WFAA was going to kind of spell this out and then lead you into a bill that may do something about it, but I'm not too optimistic about this bill either. All right, news partner WFAA.
An almost 2-year nightmare.
House was full of garbage.
And still, Terry Boyette has yet to move back in her Mesquite home because while away in 2023 visiting her mom, a squatter took over.
Ever watch Hoarders? That's what it looked like.
She says police told her it was a civil matter, so she got a lawyer to start an eviction, a process that took her months as the squatter wasn't evicted until 2024.
What happened is they had to come in and clean out the house with hazmat suits.
This nightmare is one others face too.
I'm just wondering when you might start giving a damn about taxpayers in Texas.
Texas State House is considering a bill that will speed up the process to evict squatters. And Thursday, the state Senate passed one of their own. In a statement, State Senator Paul Bettencourt says the bill would require courts to act within 10 to 21 days of property owners filing a notice of vacate and cracks down on appeals that stall them.
Nothing in the bill deals with squatters.
Dallas Eviction Advocacy Center's Mark Melton says the bill instead violates real tenants' rights.
That allows for a landlord to file a lawsuit and then evict the tenant without a hearing at all.
Mark says it doesn't give tenants enough time to get legal representation and would only increase the county's unhoused population.
85% of the people that are being subjected to eviction in Dallas County are under 200% of the federal poverty line.
He says out of roughly 20,000 eviction cases they've seen, only about 10 were legitimate squatters.
This is political theater in a lot of ways.
And while Terry is dealing with a real case, she too says the bill doesn't effectively address the issue.
There's not enough direction for the court, and again, no consequences for people who are trying to break the law.
A consequence only adding to her days of nightmare. In Mesquite, I'm Brittany Moncrief.
All right, do you feel the same sort of confusion that I do? Clearly, I'm missing something. The people who own the property have the right to be there. If you're on someone else's property and they tell you to leave, you got to leave. If you don't leave, they're welcome to use whatever force necessary. And if you don't go ahead and have the cops cooperate when they call the sheriff or the cops or whatever to come get these trespassers off of their property, then what good are the cops? Oh, this is a civil dispute. No, it's not a civil dispute. This is trespassing. This is a criminal dispute. Look, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like me being from an hour and a half east of here is a completely different world. We don't have this problem in Bug Tussle. If someone's in your house when you get home and you ask them to leave and they don't leave and you don't already know them by their first name, all you gotta do is say, okay, well, I have this gun. Now what are you gonna do? Are you gonna leave? And you can ask them to leave. You can kind of start to push them. And if they resist and want to escalate it, no problem. No more squatters. I had a burglar in my house. He was not invited here. He broke in. He did not have permission. I'm not dealing with a squatter. This is a burglar at this point. This is a breaking and entering on top of a criminal trespassing, on top of ignoring the request to leave. And then when you try and physically push them out, if it escalates, then shoot them. Now you don't have to worry about a lawsuit, or you don't have to worry about how long a judge takes to issue the report and get the constable out there with the proper paperwork. Either handle it when they call the cops, or people are just going to handle it themselves. Do you want the cops to remove the squatters when they're called, or do you want people to start shooting squatters? Am I missing something? I really feel like I need to go to law school before I can do some of these shows here. Because I don't understand what the guy's complaint on WFAA is. Well, this is going to not just affect squatters, this will affect other tenants too. What, badly? You mean like when the person who owns the building asks them to leave, even if they want to break the lease, ask them to leave? Well, this doesn't give them enough time to get legal representation. Legal representation for what? What lawyer can you get and say, no, that whoever owns this property cannot control it in the way they see fit? I demand to have use, like in usufruct. I demand to have the use of this property against the property owner's wishes. How is that even a thing? Here's a news flash. If your landlord doesn't want you to live there, move. Find a new place. Don't get representation. Get an apartment. Don't go hire a lawyer. Get a new place. Get a roommate. Move in with your buddy. Sleep on a couch. Get a storage shed. I have no idea how anybody is on the side of the squatters in any of these situations. Oh, no, we can't have a law about it. It might make what? People be able to force landlords to provide them housing against their own will? What is that? Is that your preferred outcome here? Anyway, I'll be asking Jeremy Rosenthal about that after we do name that artist coming up. But if you have any answers for me, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Oh, you didn't give us enough time to get legal representation. No, I gave you enough time to leave, is what I gave you. 800-288-9227. I really feel like I'm missing something. Am I just making an idiot out of myself here? Because I feel like I'm missing there's like a Grand Canyon of gulf between me and my logical interpretation of the situation. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. A couple pieces of breaking news that have passed through the transom just in the last couple hours here. Number one is the immigration judge in Louisiana has ruled that Mahmoud Khalil can be deported. Now, he's the guy that was from Columbia, or not the country Columbia. He was at the college Columbia. And he was a legal permanent resident here on a student visa, and he was leading protests in favor of Hamas and Palestine. And, you know, it was one of the uglier ones where they were blocking Jewish kids from going to class. They were breaking the law against trespassing and sleeping in the courtyard or whatever. I mean, it's nothing too major, just really unethical, ugly stuff. And so I think most people agree that immigrating here is a privilege, not a right, and we should be screening them out, especially the people that are in the Death to America camp. So we all kind of understand, like, hey, we gave it a shot. We gave you a visa, gave you a little probationary trial period, like a first date, and you came over here and you chanted Death to America, and you supported terrorist organizations, and you blocked minorities from going to school. Doesn't look like this is going to be a good fit. I don't think Chuck Woolery and Love Connection is going to have to pay for a second date on this one. Go home. So there was some intentional misframing of the situation, like, oh, you're just deporting people who disagree with you politically. No, you're still here. No, we're deporting people who are not citizens, who are here on a trial basis, going through our immigration process, who make it clear that they hate this country. And then the other breaking news is Jasmine Crockett is now under investigation by the Federal Election Commission over donations made to her campaign through the leftist fundraising organization Act Blue. That just is floating over Twitter here. And the reading I see on this, it sounds like the larger problems that are going on with Act Blue, period. They had gotten some people's information and were clocking their bank accounts for these small donations that went unnoticed. So kind of stealing from donors, like, yeah, sure, I give you permission to draft $50 from my account. And then the next, like 3 months later, they'll draft like $17 or something really small. And they do this to thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. They ended up pilfering a few $million and giving it to their preferred political candidates. So I'm not sure if even Jasmine Crockett knew about any of this stuff, much less approved of it. And if nothing else, she may get exonerated in this investigation. But that's what's being reported now, nonetheless. And I'll keep you updated on that. Not that I'm not an apologist or sympathetic to Jasmine Crockett. Just I'm not sure she did anything wrong there. She's just getting money from a corrupt political action committee. All right, my next guest here on the James Show, Eric Topchik, is concerned about China tariffs, and rightfully so, because, Eric, this is really the only big tariff battle we have going, and I think it's gotten as bad as it's going to get. China says we'll retaliate with 125% tariffs of our own, but we don't foresee responding to any future tariff changes. So is the worst behind us, Eric?
You know, I think, thanks for having me, by the way. I think that things are going to get better. Ultimately, you know, short-term pain, long-term gain. We all, you know, understand that the new administration is very bullish on leveling the playing field back in the favor of our country, which I think we all agree with, largely speaking. And so, you know, I think we're in a situation where we just have to ride out the tide right now. And it might get a little worse before it gets better. But ultimately, I think we're all optimistic at how pro-America the administration is. And that's very pro-business. And ultimately, once we get China to bend their knee and come to the table like every other country has done, I think we'll start seeing some really good progress.
Well, I don't know how much Xi Jinping can take. Now, he is an autocratic dictator who runs the whole country with an iron fist, but he is still serving at the pleasure of the Politburo. And the more pain that the other oligarchs feel in that room, the more likely one of his rivals could knock him off. So he doesn't have an infinite capacity to take in some pain, but probably more so than other countries. How far do you think he can take this?
You know, I think that's yet to be seen. But at the end of the day, China's economy is just massively reliant on not only stealing American IP and products and just turning around and, you know, kind of turning the table on us. But that seems like it's going to be a consistent theme, and ultimately, I think we'll see how fast China comes to the table to negotiate, if they do at all. And if they don't, then I think they're going to see some real pain in their economy. And I think it's probably, and I'm not an economist, but it's going to probably be worse than what we're feeling over here. They're very reliant on our business.
Well, Trump doesn't have a forever timetable either. He is probably going to want to have everybody in a good mood by the time the midterms roll around. So what do you think his timetable looks like? And is it longer than Xi Jinping?
Well, Trump's got a few years ahead of him, and I think he's got to be very careful with how many things he breaks right now. But I think that, these things have needed to happen, and it's, obviously it's gonna take some time, and he doesn't want to get into the midterms. I'm not a political strategist, but he'll, I think we'll see every other country's coming to the table. We're starting to see a lot of companies starting to do more onshoring, moving their manufacturing to countries like Vietnam. So we have suppliers that have done that very proactively. And, if China keeps refusing to come to the table, probably extend the pain we're feeling here and the volatility. But at the end of the day, I think we're moving in the right direction to level the playing field.
All right, Eric Topchik, thanks for coming on the James Show. Appreciate your expertise,
Thanks for
sir.
having me. Thank you.
All right, coming up next, we're going to play Name That Artist. And in the Name That Artist here, fantastic prize. We're going back to the I Want My 80s tour featuring Rick Springfield, John Waite, Wang Chung, Paul Young. If you want to go see the I Want My 80s tour at Music Hall at Fair Park on July 20th, and you know all 10 of these songs, you might want to call in. Good Lord, that's a hard one. All right, let me go and reiterate. Even if you don't know all 10 songs, but you really want the tickets, you may be the guy that's standing at the end of the line that gets the tickets without having to do anything because everyone else bombed. Even if you just know like 4 of them, if everyone else only knows 3, you're going to get the tickets. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. For those of you just playing along in your car, you'll find out the name of the artist on all 10 of those songs. Coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there. Happy Friday. Welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP. Now on FM at 93.3. Well, it's Friday. It's 4:35-ish. And time to play Name That Artist here. Today, great set of tickets on Name That Artist. It's for the I Love the 80s tour. And so it's going to be headlined by Rick Springfield, but you also get to see John Waite, Wang Chung, and Paul Young. I went my entire life without knowing what the heck a Wang Chung was until we just Googled it on the break, me and Bruce over here. It is the Chinese words for yellow bell. And it's used as a metaphor for the first note in a scale. So everybody have fun tonight. Everybody yellow bell tonight. Or everybody root note tonight. I still don't understand it. But that being said, the concert's going to be on July 20th. Tickets and information now at livenation.com. But someone's going to go to Music Hall at Fair Park through us with Name That Artist. Where are we starting here? Wendy? Hey, say what? Oh, yeah. We should play the montage again. Wendy, do you already have them all written down?
No.
All right.
I'm trying to remember.
Nope, don't do that. We don't do this off the top of our memory. Listen, I'm going to put you back on hold. Either pull out a notepad, file on your phone, or get a piece of paper and a writing utensil super duper quick. I'll play the montage again, and everyone else on hold, Keith, David, Brian, write it down so when I go to you, you can just list all 10 of the artists for Name That Artist. All right, so there's your montage. All right, Wendy in Plano, if it makes you feel any better, Bruce made the montage this week, and when I tried to do it before the show, I only got 4. I got 4 out of 10, so don't feel bad if you don't know them all, but let's hear what you got. Ready, Wendy?
I guess.
Okay. Ready, go.
Okay, Linda Ronstadt.
What, you reverse order here? Is that okay?
It doesn't have to be in order.
I can figure it out. Let's go.
Okay. And you also said Wang Chung, Paul Young, Rick Springfield. And that's as far as I got. There's 3 others that I was trying to remember their names.
Yeah, none of them dudes are in the montage. That's who we're winning tickets for. Hang on, Wendy. All right. That's not a stellar start. Keith in Plano. Can you beat Wendy? Keith, you with me, bud?
Yeah.
Can you beat Wendy?
You hear me? Yeah, I think so.
All right, let's hear your list. Ready, go.
Cranberries, Oasis.
Well, hang on. Let me talk to your passenger if he's the one that has the list.
Okay. Cranberries, Oasis, Avril Lavigne,
Well,
John Susie Mellencamp.
Not Avril Lavigne. Keep going.
John Logan. What you said.
Hang on.
Which one being right?
Yeah, that wasn't an Avril Lavigne. I know who you're talking about. Hang on. Let's see if someone's got them perfect. Brian in North Lake, do you have the list?
I do, but like you, I'm missing a few. But I'll give you what I got.
Does anybody have the whole list? Because I don't want you to give someone the answers that they're missing. All right, let's hear it, Brian. What you got?
Linda Ronstadt. I'm going to be out of order.
That's fine.
Linda Ronstadt, Oasis, Cranberries, John Cougar Mellencamp, Bruce Hornsby, Starship, and that's all I got.
Okay, that's 6. That's pretty damn good. All right, Brian's in the lead. Do we get a steal from David from Keller? Do you have the full list?
I've got more than the last guy.
You got more than 6?
Yeah.
Ready to go.
Cranberries, Oasis, Bruce Hornsby and the Range, Vanessa Carlton, John Mellencamp, Starship, Duran Duran, Linda Ronstadt.
Okay, so you're only missing 2. Ooh.
Yeah.
All right, there's one more. There's Lisa. Lisa, do you have more than
I'm
8?
out.
You're out?
I sure don't. They
So
smoke me out. They do great.
Well, I appreciate your honesty, Lisa in Waxahachie.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you very much. Looks like you're our big winner then. Well, that was pretty difficult, but I think we got the right answer here. Dave and Keller, you're our big winner on today's episode of Name That Artist. You have gotten 2 tickets to go to the I Love the 80s tour. Rick Springfield, John Waite, Wayne Chung, Paul Young. It's going to be at Music Hall at Fair Park, July 20th. For the rest of us, get our tickets, livenation.com. Well done, David. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, coming up next, we're going to have a Legal Eagle segment with the legal analyst on the James Show, Jeremy Rosenthal. A couple of questions on the table. The PETA activists that are running around playing sounds of animals dying, isn't that disturbing the peace? We'll get his thoughts on this new squatters situation here in Texas. And if we have time, maybe his reaction to the Collin County DA in the Austin Metcalf case. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. The legal analyst for the James Show, Jeremy Rosenthal, back on the scene here from TexasDefenseFirm.com. Welcome back, Jeremy. I have 3 stories I want to try and cram into this last segment. Can we go fast here?
Let's go fast. Let's do it. Speed round. Let's go. Do it. Go.
All right, so this week, PETA has been running around a truck on a route to bother meat eaters. They did it at a couple places that sell hams here downtown. They stopped by restaurants with patios, and they end up at the Peppa Pig theme park in North Richland Hills. Doesn't this count as disturbing the peace? Because coming out of the loudspeakers is the sounds of animals screaming and dying and being slaughtered. There's ugly, disturbing pictures on the side, and there's literally the intent, it seems, of disturbing the peace. Is this legal?
Well, it's good advertising for the Peppa the Pig theme park. I didn't know there was one. My daughter loved Peppa the Pig. I wish I'd have known that they. I wish I'd have known that they had that.
Jeremy, focus.
Yes. Focus. We're going speed round. Probably legal. First Amendment. You've got the First Amendment allows you freedom of speech, and if you're disturbing the peace, you've got city ordinances, you've got codes, you've got zones, you've got noise violations, and that is like certain decibel things. It's really hard to violate it. When you talk about these types of things, on occasion you see things. You see pro-life demonstrations where, in some instances, they've got to the pro-life folks might be demonstrating. They might be holding signs. So these things have been litigated. It's got to go pretty far and cross some pretty big lines in order for it to be something criminal. But because it's the First Amendment.
Yeah. Well, that assumes that they're playing the animal noises at a reasonable volume. That's not, interrupting people's meal. But if they're playing, how loud does it have to be? Does it have to cause some business to have customers walk out?
I don't know. That's a great question. We don't deal a lot with noise violations and noise complaints, but each city has their own municipal code, and those municipal codes they're going to specify, in all likelihood, certain decibel levels. And these come from, neighbors that hate each other and blare Bon Jovi at each other, that type of thing. And that's typically where you would see it. But again, it's got to cross the line. If they're staying in the street and playing it really loud, I mean, what's the difference there between there and somebody blasting it at a stop sign, blasting music there? So it's a real.
Well, to the layman, it feels like there's intent. Like if I'm just pulling up and I'm playing my Chapel Roan really loud, I'm not trying to disturb people's meals. I'm not trying to gross them out or horrify them with the sound of dying animals. I'm just having a good time, and I'm just a little too bombastic about it.
I mean, I get that, and they're walking a tightrope. I mean, these are groups that also read the law, and they're also kind of wondering, well, what can we get away with here, and what can we do? For my money, again, I didn't know there was a Peppa the Pig theme park, and now I do. So it's, beware.
Well, you're not going to go anyway. All right, next story. I was blown away. WFAA was talking about some new law that is packaged as combating squatters. People are concerned it would affect, regular legal tenants, who are getting screwed around on their lease. But how loose are the laws in squatters? If someone is in my house when I get home, I can't just ask them to leave, and if they don't leave, force them to leave or shoot them. Because look, I'm not advocating shooting anyone you find in your house, but that was the response. I seriously, I got 6 emails already when I did this a couple segments ago of people saying if they were in that situation, they would just shoot the strangers in their house that didn't leave when they were asked.
Yeah, don't do that. Okay. Landlord-tenant law and property law, you have to remember, James, goes back centuries and centuries and centuries, and it has been as old as time, the rich people and the poor people debating on what your rights are to stay, what your rights are to go, and all of these things. There are 2 chapters of the property code that are really important. It's Chapter 92 and Chapter 94, and those deal with tenancies. The laws are very strict. And yes, they're very slow, but people want to be protected from an aggressive landlord, and landlords obviously need to be protected from nightmare tenants like this. Speeding up deadlines and things like that, if that's sort of the gist of where the law is going, I don't know that a whole lot of folks would have problems with it. If you talk to people who are like justices of the peace or folks like that. They deal a ton with these types of things, and the lawyers who work on those cases represent these big apartment complexes, and they do these evictions by the bushel.
All right, let me speed it up here. We're not talking about evictions. We're talking about a squatter, someone who never signed a lease or was a tenant. You just came home and there's people in your house and they won't leave. What do you do about that?
If there's no contract, then the default is the property code. And believe it or not, even if with a squatter will develop some type of tenancy rights just by being on the premises. So unfortunately, that part is true. And then you have the issue of where's the line between a squatter and somebody who just had a handshake lease where, well, that's what you told me. Well, no, it isn't. Well, yes, it is. Well, you're squatting. And so that's sort of that slippery slope. It's pretty rare, James, in these days to have that type of situation. And when it does happen, I mean, we read about it and you have these nightmare scenarios, but a squatter can develop rights.
All right, we're out of time. But when I have you on next week, I'm going to ask you about the Collin County DA and his comments on the Austin Metcalf story. We're just kind of out of time for today. But if you have any legal questions, TexasDefenseFirm.com is the website. Thank you very much, Jeremy Rosenthal.
Have a great weekend, James.
All right. We have WeatherCon coming up. It's just 15 days from now. Not tomorrow. It's 2 weeks from tomorrow. You're going to go out to the Frontiers of Flight Museum on Saturday, April 26th, sometime between 9:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. And you're going to get some cool weather demonstrations. You're going to get to meet Brad Barton, Hal J. I'll be there. We'll try and get Garrett to come out there too. I think Casey Bartholomew will be there. Fox 4's chief meteorologist will be there. If you want to see storm chasing vehicles, if you want to see weather presentations, if you want to see what the pros are doing, if you want your kids to get all kinds of educational demonstrations and booths and activities, there's a lot of stuff for the kiddos there. And it's all 100% free. Thanks to Blue Ribbon Roofing. Blue Ribbon Roofing's 2025 WeatherCon from News Talk 820 WBAP and Fox 4. All right, that's going to do it for the James Show. Stick around. Coming up next, Mark Levin. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.